Hello everyone, how's it going? In this video, we're going to talk about Palantir, trading under the ticker symbol PLTR. The financial market has been volatile for many stocks, including this one, and it has been one of the most talked about and sought after stocks. So in this video, we will go through the company, what it does and what it represents, the recent price actions, the company's financials, and my recommendation regarding whether it should be bought, sold, or held. If you appreciate my content, please consider to drop a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, please check out the links down in the description as every help is much appreciated. Before we start today's video, I'd like to state a brief disclaimer. My videos cover my opinion on the current affairs and shouldn't be viewed as investment advice, let alone a pair of crystal balls, so they should be watched for entertainment purposes only. My videos are prepared either immediately before the uploading or a few days before, so sometimes the price action may no longer reflect the charts, but they are still relevant nevertheless because the analysis is regarding the short-term momentums, so it should be relevant for up to a few weeks after the release. Also, the analysis aims to cover the securities as broadly as possible by covering the fundamentals and the technicals. Other than the price action and the news events, the long-term tendencies, shareholder composition, and fundamentals will also be covered, as they all affect the decision about if we should buy a security, how many should be bought, and whether it should be bought at the current price point. Without that being said, let's begin with today's topic. So people have been very hopeful with what Palantir might be able to deliver, and it's not just like the investors, but also the rest of the economic stakeholders. Data indeed is one of the most precious and least understood resources that corporations have, and what Palantir wishes to accomplish is to make use of the digital footprint left behind in order to help companies spot trends, to make better decisions, and to optimize operations. Palantir is known to be very well introduced in the public sector, with some of their biggest clients being government departments, in defense, law enforcement, and maybe healthcare. The reason why this makes Palantir unique is because those contracts tend to be long-term, they are guaranteed cash flows, and they're a testament of deep relationships enhanced through time. With that being said, the very nature of the company's business model has put Palantir in the tech sector and marketed as such. And this gives investors some room to be patient and to wait for a few years before the fortune comes. This is typically something that investment in tech startups would promise, and they also have delivered on some of their promises. So, for one, the revenue of Palantir did grow and diversified somewhat. On the other hand, there are also a few setbacks, because despite the fact that Palantir has been in operation for many years, they have yet to be profitable. The cost of doing business remains higher than the total revenue, and this has been one of the bigger hurdles preventing its shares from reaching higher places. Palantir is also having an overexposure in the public sector, making it vulnerable to any spending cuts or announced or potential spending cuts. The third hurdle is its own reputation. Palantir deals with data, which many may consider this as a privacy matter, and how much of the data they can get, whether they're allowed to be used, in fact, are all reasons for concerns. And recently, the company's mixed reputation has been confirmed by karp, the CEO, stating that many of their clients dislike the company, but they don't have a choice but to deal with them. And these statements are alarming, in my opinion, and the effort to improve the brand image should be implemented. Another issue that is facing Palantir is the unfavorable market trend. So Palantir, just like any growth stocks, requires a favorable investment environment in which investors are optimistic about the future and therefore willing to invest. With a looming recession, interest rates raising, the QT, quantitative tightening of money, and also the conflicts around the world, investors no longer have this kind of confidence, and a lot of them are preferring to put their money in the safer investment options like savings account, bonds, and blue chips. It's suffice to say that Palantir has been having a lot of downward pressure, and those issues will take some time before being resolved. In the meantime, the gravitational pull would be downward. So, in terms of the short-term price action, Palantir has been able to hover around $6.30, so at least above $6, which is up by more than 4% in the past 5 days. This may mark the beginning of a recovery, but we still need more confirmations to confirm that this is actually a recovery. For now, I would say that the market hesitates to go lower, unless there's a major reason to do so. The fundamentals and market trends continue to have a lot of pressure on the company, but we can see that the market and the company show some resilience. Overall, I would say that it's still holding quite well, but cannot stop the bearish environment caused by external reasons. So if we look at the long-term price action of Palantir, we must ask ourselves whether this company will have a place in the economy of tomorrow. I mean, we already know that Palantir is not profitable and isn't going to be for another few years. That much is pretty much priced in. We know that Palantir is a highly sophisticated company and requires a lot of top personnel, and that it aims to become the analytic dashboard for rich companies from both private and public entities. So the true debate is whether Palantir itself will stand the test of time from a technical perspective, and whether the market will believe in its potentials. So we have to remember that Palantir fell by almost 80% from the peak of the share price, from $35 down to $7.28. Much of it is due to the overall market trend, and the rest of it is caused by doubts of the company's growing potentials. So its business model, for the moment, is a little bit criticized and put in question, in the sense that, if they rely so much on the public sector, what if they no longer want to do business with Palantir? So personally, I believe that Palantir has been testing its bottom for some time now, as the downward slope stopped its progression for more than 6 months, ever since the price reached $8 back in May of this year. The rest of the downward slide is probably caused by the habit of going lower by default. Doesn't mean that we're going to go back to new highs. I don't think so. But on the other hand, I think that Palantir will fundamentally have a place in the economy of the future, and this is why I believe that its price is supposed to significantly change in a few years. So given that it's been down by so much, the only logical scenario is that eventually there will be a price recovery once the storm is behind us. As we look at Palantir's financials, the first thing that I note is the positive gross margin. This is very important because it kind of confirms that a company's core business model seems to work. It is true that the revenue has been growing slowly over time, which sparked some worries and from some investors, but the fact that the gross profit is positive suggests that the main issue now is the scalability and the diversification of the operations, which may solve the problem once they reach a critical number of clients. We gotta remember that Palantir's revenue managed to grow despite the fact that there is a de facto recession in many key economies around the world, suggesting that Palantir's clients are robust and with high credibility. The cash flow report suggests that despite having a net loss, Palantir can self-finance significant chunks of their operations, with positive free cash flows at the end of each quarter ever since Q1 of 2021. This would mean that the pressure of Palantir to go through rounds of share dilutions would be relatively low, which is a good thing for the shareholders. Another significant aspect to consider would be the liabilities that Palantir has on its books. Currently, there's around $900 million, which seems to be decreasing a little bit from previous quarters. This is also reassuring, suggesting that the company is keen on having lower leverage, decreasing the solvency risk, and making sure that the company remains a going concern. There's around 34% of institutional ownership amongst the Palantir's shareholders. And this means that Palantir does have a significant level of endorsement from these institutions, but they're largely outnumbered by retail shareholders, and that there will be a significant chunk of people going in and out of the stock based on the market moves. So I think that Palantir is good for investment. We should have an overall investing approach with it, but I would say that always beware of people who still hope to profit off the swings, and perhaps don't blink too much when small volatilities occur. So with all that being said, what is my overall recommendation on Palantir? I think that Palantir is a decent stock, but it needs time to grow. The business model has proven to work on a bare bone level, but it needs to be scaled up and diversified. It requires additional confirmation from a stock price perspective to see if an entry now is a good idea. Overall, we have to keep a close eye on Palantir because this will be a sensitive stock to rebound in the years to come. And we might start seeing signals of the confirmation or not confirming this tendency in 2023, most likely. My recommended exposure would be around 5 to 8% of your portfolio.